You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Clothes for Chiro, Zinget Solutions, Imaging Services, Posture Screen, Dr. Peter Goldman's Zone School of Healing, Bax Max, Chiro Thin, Rhino Coaching Systems, Chiro Moguls, 5-Star Management, The Goodman Factor, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Health USA, Local Gold, and Go Get Talks. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 119 of Chiro Hustle. I am your co-host Luke. Here's your host, Jim.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Melissa Longo, and if you want to understand how to create podcasts and the purpose behind them and how to reach your audiences greater, stay tuned. We're just going to dive right into this episode with you and kind of get your background in chiropractic. So can you just tell us your chiropractic story and what influenced you to become a chiropractor?
Sure. It's great to see you guys. Thanks for having me join you today. I became a chiropractor because I had a shoulder injury, of all things. I was studying kinesiology when I was doing my undergrad, and we were doing some muscle testing stuff, and something went wrong. And after a couple of days, I started getting some pain and then tingling in my hand, and my mom said, you should go see a chiropractor. So I called one person, they were closed. I called another person, he was closed. Looked up someone in the yellow pages, a woman, I connected with her, and to this day, I don't know what possessed me to answer this question in her office, because I sat down and she started telling me about chiropractic and why the pain in my fingers, the numbness and tingling could be coming from my spine. And she heard that I was studying, kinesiology. She's like, oh, you should become a chiropractor. And I don't know what possessed me to say, oh, I'm going to apply. Something, so deep inside me, I guess, knew that I was meant to be a chiropractor, because I got adjusted that day and went home and called CMCC and got an application package. And applied, and obviously my health was changed dramatically in the time that I started getting adjusted, and when I applied to CMCC, and by the time I wrote my my essays for applications and went to the interview, I was so powerfully affected by chiropractic and my own personal health that I was fired up to get started.
So now that you're here in the chiropractic space, what would you say makes you unique or stand apart from the other doctors out there?
In my town?
No, in general.
In general? Mm-hmm. What makes me stand apart? I think, like a lot of docs, I love seeing families. I love focusing on family health and wellness. I think I have an interest in communications and some of the media work that I don't know. I know there's plenty of docs doing this kind of work now in their communities and online, but I've recently, probably in the last 5 to 6 years, really developed a love for doing. I had my own television show in my community. I have had, I've like 3 podcasts, 3rd podcast starting next week, done a lot of video. So I think my comfort level with that has just grown as I've started to do it. And I made lots of mistakes along the way, but I think that I'm probably maybe doing a little bit more than some other docs in that sphere. As far as technique, I practice a variety of different techniques. I love to see kids. I'm learning every day, like lots of docs are as well. I think what makes me unique possibly, though, is my practice space. I don't know the percentages of docs who run practices out of about 500 square feet. We're sitting right now in my reception area in my practice, which is part of my home. So I run a home-based practice, and with consistent growth and retention and a lot of fun and energy in here on a daily basis, which has also allowed me a lot of time to be home with my kids too. So that practice setup might be a little bit unique to some people.
And you also do coaching with Dr. Ed Osburn too, right?
I do. Yeah. I started a podcast a couple of years ago, and then I built my other Rockstar Doctor Life programs. And then through that, he asked me about 6 months ago to join him and Dr. Jason Richardson in the inner circle there. And that's been great. I really, really love the people in that group, and the opportunities that we've had to work together has been certainly brought me a lot of joy too.
Yeah, I saw early on that you're talking about what made you unique, and one of the things I think that really makes you unique is you're rehearsed and you're well spoken. And I think so many times when people build a voice for themselves, they become uncertain on their tone that they use, and there's a lot of fillers like ums and a lot of awkward pauses for people. So it's really cool to see that you've built yourself your own voice. and it's becoming stronger, and you're building an audience and followers. And off camera, we were talking about that a little bit. We were talking about like knowing your avatar, if you will, but knowing your audience and how to like basically segment your audience. If you want to build your clinic with the podcast, how you do that. If you want to build your chiropractic with the podcast, how you do that.
Yeah, I think it's crucial. Yeah, you need to know who you're talking to, you know, who's listening and who do you want to connect with. Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that feedback. I would definitely say that I think the television work I did, I had some great mentors when I was doing that in my community, and I made lots of mistakes. But everything, you know, like many things in life, things lead you to other steps. And so doing all that work then helped me be more confident when I started podcasting. And then, you know, by the third podcast now and doing videos for programs and videos for different groups, you know, you just get better the more you do something, right? So I think that I've learned with a lot of mistakes.
So with being a doctor and being a mom and running your own like media companies, do you have any favorite motivational quotes or mantras that keep you fired up every day?
I have two that come to mind. The one for chiropractic is that, you know, the old standby, I call it, but you never know how far reaching something you will think, say, or do will impact the lives of others tomorrow. And I just think sometimes the best practices are built one person at a time, right? I've had many conversations with people over 17 years of practice that I think they kind of went in one ear and out the other ear. And next thing you know, a year later, they're in my office, or they live in another town and they told another family member to go see a chiropractor. So you just don't know the ripple effect that being on purpose and being passionate about the work that you're doing and really being aligned with the work that you want to be doing will have in the world. And sometimes it can be easy to get defeated, and it can be easy to think that, you know, let's say someone comes into your practice and maybe they don't follow your recommendations, or they don't get the results that you want, or they're not willing to do the exercises you want them to do. It's not up to us to make those decisions for them. We can just lead them the best that we can and try to love them through their own process. And ultimately, you know, let the cards fall as they may. I think the other one that always comes to mind for me is keep calm and carry on. Because a lot of times life throws you lots of curves in your personal life and your professional life. And I know it certainly has for me, and being able to just stay calm in lots of challenging moments and just keep going. We were talking about that in the pre-chat as well, is just being consistent and staying the course, whether it's in your practice. What breaks my heart sometimes, I don't know if you guys have had this experience with all your interviews, but so many docs in earlier years of practice, they get frustrated, or maybe they haven't really found the right space or the right position with other doctors or the right mentors, and they quit, or they give up too soon in really pursuing the kind of life that could give them a healthy relationship with the people they love and a healthy business life. And it's a long game, you know, and there's 17 years later, I love my practice more today than I did when I first started. So I think keeping calm and keeping going is also a big part of my life too.
You know, the funniest thing about the keep calm quote is I've seen so many like variations of it. I actually had to research what the original quote was.
Yeah. I'm sure you guys could come up with your own variation of it too.
I've come up with a few, but I don't remember. It was like a few years ago now.
I think the cool thing about, you know, your direction and what you've been able to assemble for yourself as your mantras, it's very much a fail forward mentality when it comes to keep calm and carry on. And if you're ever going to do it, so many times I'll talk to people and I'm like, you don't have to get it right, but you have to get it going. I heard that like over a decade ago. And
that's great.
So many people think that they have to get it right before they start it. And that's what I love about what we do as a collaboration is we help each other get it right so we can get it going better. And, you know, before we went live today, you know, you did a video teaching us how to do a streaming Facebook Live that would be our future podcast. And I think that we didn't get it right the past 2 times. We tried to do this, but we did. We failed forward with your mentality, and we kept calm through it. And I said, okay, Luke, we're not going to do the live today. We're just going to record the video through Zoom, and then we're going to produce it that way. So it makes so much sense for people that are like really towing the line for being creative and really content is keep calm and hustle on.
Well, I think too, when you make mistakes in any sphere, you learn what to do differently. So whether you try a new procedure in your practice, or, you know, you're trying to learn a new technique or a new marketing tactic, or if you're in the online world, you're trying to, I don't know, price something or create some content, you know, you're going to gather data as you move through it. People, I think like you just said, they get stuck all the time because they wait till everything is perfect. And sometimes you might have everything perfect the way you think it should be, but then your avatar or your audience or your practice base or your community doesn't receive it that way. And so the only way you're going to actually correct it and actually succeed is if you start, fail, and make some adjustments right along the way, and then make it better.
Yeah, I think it's critical for us to know that. And the other part that you touched on was we have no idea how far-reaching something we say or do will have an impact on millions of lives tomorrow. And I really think that that's the impetus of why we started Chiro Hustle, is we knew eventually that we would get the chiropractic message outside the four walls of chiropractic, and we'd eventually escape the echo chamber of the profession, and people would start really getting turned on to the chiropractic message, that it wasn't about the yellow page ad, or it wasn't about the slip and fall or the auto accident, even though that those things are essential and people need care for that stuff. But we were really looking to bridge chiropractic into the larger ecosystem, to where people started to understand the identity around the profession and started to be able to approach it differently and understand it differently, and not hear it from us, but hear it from you, which is, I think, so vital to the message. And if we just kept on doing those type of impressions by the hundreds and by the thousands, eventually people would start to resonate with the chiropractic message a little bit different than what their cousins, brothers, aunts, uncles had told them, and they were misinformed. Now we're informing them.
Absolutely. Well said.
And you know, that's the great thing about being the host that you are as well, is you get a chance to be the, you know, the color commentator and the person that creates and brings the message together, as well as being the interview subject.
Yeah, I love this, because usually I'm the one directing all the questions, so it's hard for me not to fire questions back at you guys here.
Reverse interview.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, if you do have questions for us as we go through this, don't be shy.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Yeah.
We've never had anyone ask us questions before.
I would be happy to be the first. I'm okay with that.
So, as we go through the interview process with you, what do you think we'd be able to accomplish if, like you said, you know, you got into this and you wanted to help moms and families and, you know, kids? What would happen if we got this message out to more people?
It would be so much easier for all of us to change people's lives, you know, whether it's in our practices with chiropractic or just helping people understand how they should be eating or moving their body or getting outside. I think that collaboration is always, always more effective than competition. So if there was, I've never looked at it, even in my own town. I mean, I just trust that what I'm doing in my practice and the families that I work with is aligned with who I am and is giving, you know, good care and quality results and ethical and, you know, all of those things. And I don't really look at what anyone else in my town is doing. I would love all the offices here to be as busy as possible. So I think that the more that we all share, you know, the benefits of chiropractic, the benefits of healthy living, that health comes from the inside out by nurturing the body's ability to heal. That, you know, that's a powerful message. If people in the general society understood that, we would have a different healthcare system, right? We would have a true healthcare system and not a sick care system. So I think that the chiropractic heart and soul, the philosophy, is really what docs need to be sharing with people.
So with the way everything is going now, where do you see chiropractic heading in the next 20 years?
Yeah, I thought about this question when I looked at the questions you guys sent, and I think it's right now we're in Canada where there's some difficult things happening politically. I know you guys are dealing with some stuff in the States as well. I would like to think that we will be growing. I think right now, to be honest, I think that I hope that we'll be where we are still right now, and that there won't be a decrease in real chiropractic care. We're certainly seeing a lot of challenges, and I think in 17 years of practice, I haven't seen the numbers change too much, to be honest. Doesn't mean I don't believe that they should or they can't, but there needs to be a lot more unity and a lot more respect amongst our professions, amongst people in our professions.
Yeah, you know, you touched on some interesting topics there, and one of those is being, you know, the change of the profession, or, you know, the way that people understand it within the collective of chiropractic, and how it's staying the same almost. I think that there's some things we really need to pay attention to, and that's just making sure that the language stays strong, and that people don't manipulate from the core and make changes that don't like represent the profession. And I think that that's what's happening is people are that ugly word in chiropractic, manipulation. They're manipulating the core of the language, and they're changing that as the scope when it comes to the actual practitioner. And just to be clear, I've had contact with young Canadian chiropractors recently, and they tell me that they're evidence-based. They tell me that they're musculoskeletal, that's their lead. So we already see the change happening.
Yeah, and it's that evidence-based verbiage really triggers me, because you find me a neurologically based chiropractor that doesn't know the evidence around what we do and hasn't read some science. So I don't want to go there right now because I'll get a little bit fired up. But I think that there's a lot more chiropractors that practice in that middle ground than on the fringes, than the two extremes. And I think that there's a potential for still so much massive growth, in how we look after people. If we can say, if those two fringe areas cannot be doing this and everyone can be respectful a little bit more. I was in some group recently, they talked about how the number of people's lives who are impacted by vitalistic chiropractors is much more than people who practice in a more mechanical musculoskeletal based model. And so why don't we look at what the patients have to say, which is why I love what you guys are doing with that documentary, because it's putting the power in patients and giving them a chance to say, look, say what you want about chiropractic, but this is how it affected my life. This is how I'm moving better. I'm able to play with my kids better. I'm doing hobbies. I can go to work without pain. I mean, that's where the real power is getting people more engaged with their health and giving them a chance to share, I think.
So much of what you said is necessary for people to hear. And I think that you should get fired up because it is your profession. I think you should, be impassioned because it is on our watch. I think that you have to be involved. Otherwise, people will hopelessly not make any change. And
True.
I think that that's something we have to be aware of as well. You said 17 years in practice. This is an unscripted question for you, but what have you seen? What have you seen as like a major advancement? We're talking about maybe things that are corrosive in a way. What do you see as a major advancement over the past 10 years that you think that is something that we could share with our audience today?
I think definitely the increase because of technology, because of podcasts, because of video, because of groups. I think there is a much higher way that we can connect with other chiropractors than there ever has been before. And for the longest time, you could be in your practice and feel like you were alone and you were, on an island. No one understood your challenges as a woman, as a man, as a family member, whatever it was. So I think the power of connecting and collaborating with people and learning, doing your continuing education hours is so much easier now than it ever has been. So I would say, hands down, technology has given us a lot of power to build relationships with other people, to learn more, to get better at what we do as doctors, to learn better communication techniques, to learn better ways to share our message and market our practices, to then also take it, we talked about earlier, to take that to another whole level and then share our messages of health and healing in an online platform, whether you want to educate people about how to eat right or why they should exercise or how they can meditate. I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head about some of the docs I know what they're doing. I think that's a huge advancement. And if you take that power and again, collaborate and give docs the tools where they can share their message with a greater audience, that's powerful to me.
You said, this is a great interview. You're sharing so much, advancement for thoughts. You're sharing advancement for the profession of where it's going and where it's going right and maybe where we can do better. But I think, as we talk about, the profession as a whole, I'm really enthusiastic about what you've been doing with podcasting. And I think that that's a medium that a lot of people are very interested in. And you've been doing it since 2016, so that's 3 years. Why did you originally start your podcast and what were your ambitions around it?
I felt like I love listening to podcasts. I thought it was a great medium. You can listen to them anywhere, right? You can be in, your house, cooking dinner, at the gym, on a bike, in my car. So as far as a way to intake information, I thought it was brilliant. And I wanted to, initially my first podcast was for moms. It's not in production, but it's still around, Everyday Rockstar Moms. And I wanted to have conversations on a bigger scale with women, because I was seeing them in my practice every day. Women who were feeling like they were not doing a good enough job as a mom, or they were stressed, or, I just wanted them, and I was reassuring them and telling them, like, your kids are amazing. Your kids are healthy. This is maybe one thing you could do to help someone else, or this is one thing you do to take care of your health. So I really just had the heart and the passion to help women find more strength in themselves as mothers. And I had women on the show who were CEOs, and I had women on the show who were stay-at-home moms, and everything in between, women who had dealt with postpartum depression, all kinds of challenges. So that was where it started. But truthfully, Jim, I think my heart was always with chiropractic women. I just didn't have the confidence yet when I first started my first show to go into that professional realm. So the Everyday Rockstar Moms launched in April of 2016. And then December 2016, I launched the second show for women in chiropractic called Rockstar Doctor Moms. And that was definitely, again, the heart of that show is connecting women with, it's okay to take time out of your practice to be a great mom. It's okay to build a practice that's going to work for your lifestyle, the kind of mom that you want to be, whether that's a big practice or little practice or something in between. And it was just to have different conversations, because I felt when I was a mom with 2 young kids, there wasn't a lot of connection that I had. The connection that I had was with my girlfriends. So I wanted to extend that and create a forum for women. And then through that, I built a community, a private Facebook community, and I ran programs and do one-on-one mentorship. But then after about a year of that, I realized that I was having some similar conversations with men, and I was ready to change things up and to evolve with the brand and the show. So last year, after 70 shows, Rockstar Doctor Moms became Rockstar Doctor Life. And I started to interview men and chiropractic couples. And now we're even including other healthcare professionals who are really just trying to rock their life, live a life that's healthy, meaning that you have great relationships that are meaningful to you, that you take care of your physical health, that you are practicing, self-care habits, and also you're having a great business that provides a lifestyle that you want for yourself. So that has been my journey with podcasting. That show now is at 118 episodes as of next week. And as you said earlier, through that program, I then developed other opportunities to travel and to speak and now to work with you and Dr. J and Dr. Ed in the Inner Circle. And I have a new podcast starting next week, which is designed more for my practice. And that is to have conversations about health and healthy living and health coming from the inside out. So the true chiropractic philosophy in a podcast forum. So I love it. I think it's a fun medium for me. I love conversations. I find people really interesting. I like that podcasting. I don't have to look, my hair doesn't have to be done, and I don't have to, it's easy. It's easy to do. So, maybe I can say it's easy because it's come over 3 years of experience, but like you were saying earlier, you just got to start and get going and see how the message changes. And I think that's something that anyone could be doing. There's so many just ways to start a podcast now that are free, that are really, really low investment, that can impact your community and your practice. That's a long answer. I'm sorry.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Clothes for Chiro, Zinget Solutions, Imaging Services, Posture Screen, Dr. Peter Goldman's Zone School of Healing, Max, ChiroThin, Rhino Coaching Systems, Chiro Moguls, 5-Star Management, The Goodman Factor, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Health USA, Local Gold, and Go Get Talks. Let's hustle.
My follow-up to that is 2 parts. Did you find what you were looking for with your upstart? And how did you manage each advancement of how you've pivoted? Like, you said, I went through this part and then I reinvented. I went through this part and then I reestablished the next audience. Did you find what you were looking for with your upstart? And did you build some good relationships throughout that whole process?
100%. Yes. I think that for me also, the greatest gift of podcasting has given me is connecting with other doctors and building those relationships with people that I've then gone on and done work with, or that maybe they've hired me, but also just been able to collaborate like we were talking about earlier. And I think for me, the way that I measure the success of the show is not by always the number of downloads or, the income. It's by the impact that I feel like I'm having with women, and even now men, when I get emails about thanks for the show, that was really refreshing, or that helped me see things in a different way, or just knowing that doctors are living with a better balance, better health, better business. That to me brings me a lot of joy. So yes, that was my only metric of success. I think at the beginning was I needed to have a different conversation and just feel like I was doing something that fulfilled a purpose for me. So I think that's how I measured things. So it does. I have had the success that I expected with it. Always looking to grow, always looking to expand. I think that it's really important with any brand and even in our practices to constantly be challenging ourselves and keep growing and evolving with time and as the needs change. So if you had asked me 3 years ago, I probably would not have done a show for men and women in chiropractic. But after doing it for a year and realizing that, I could do it, and realizing that there was a need, and realizing that there was interest, that gave me the motivation to change it up. And the interesting thing was when I decided to switch the show over to include men, I sent out 10 invites, and the interviews were booked within the week. So then I knew that I was onto something, because it was very well received very quickly.
So before you launched, were you afraid? Were you afraid of exposing yourself and doing something you never done before?
Of course. Absolutely.
What advice would you give to somebody that's like considering doing what you and I have been doing and Luke has been doing for the past 3 years? What advice would you give to somebody if they didn't have the confidence to start, but they really wanted to?
Oh, I think of what my son says. I think I've raised my sons well when they tell me now, face your fear, mom. Because first of all, when I did television for the number of years, it was all recorded. And then I got asked to do some live things, and I was nervous because I said, that's a whole different game doing it live. What if I make a mistake? And my sons looked at me and they said, Mom, you have to get out of your comfort zone and face your fear. And, so I think that you just, like you said earlier, you learn by experience. And what have you got? I don't know. What have you got to lose? That's what I always think, like, I'm scared to do things all the time, but I think that I'm more afraid of missing an opportunity to help someone. So, you work with docs a lot of the time and show them how to grow their practices. Well, what if you just told one more person about chiropractic? Even if you had a difficult conversation or something that you weren't sure about, or maybe people are more introverted, they're more shy, but what if that person's life could be changed by something that you say? So I think for me, it's the purpose and the passion, and really feeling like I'm supposed to be doing this kind of work is what fuels me. And I think if you're really grounded and certain in that, in any kind of work that you're doing, it's always going to help you be a little more fearless. But I also think it's learned. I think that this is a good question for Dr. Jason Richardson. You should ask Dr. Jason this in our group. I think that the more that you do things that scare you, you start to learn that, you can fail and keep going. Right. And life is not perfect, but the more you do it, the more resilient you get too. So I'm going to ask the question for you guys now. So what makes you do things that you're scared about? You just tried new technology today. What made you decide that you wanted to just try something new and keep going and asking people for interviews?
I didn't decide this.
Luke agrees to the craziness that I propose.
Yeah.
So, I guess what excited me was we could share a message with people, and it gave us meaningful work. And when I thought about podcasting from like the get-go, was I wanted to add more value, and I wanted to connect the dots to a bigger picture. And I really felt like there wasn't a real catalyst out there. There were only self-serving marketers, and they were only trying to sell stuff to people. They weren't creating real value. When I looked at what we had done as a team, we had really developed real value, and we developed real strategy to get the message to more people, whether it was creating a documentary, selling chiropractic services and teaching people how to do that, creating a podcast that people were listening to all over the world. I just found that there was a lot of fun for us to to push what we could do creatively. And one of the things I was going to mention to you is we all have the tools. And like Steve Jobs said, go use them. So before it was a podcast, it was just a voice memo. And then it's like, well, if you go to this platform and you do the voice memo and you record it, then you can create something with like an intro, an outro, a midway, and you can create a show. So the tools were there. And I was like, well, who could I learn how to do the tools from? And then I got into Ed's training and I was like, well, you know, what am I going to call it? And I was afraid too. We were like thinking of names to call our show. And I was just like, that kind of sucks, but it sounds good. No, seriously. So a lot was with brand development. But yeah, we were super, super scared, like jumping into this whole arena. It took me 2 years before we like actually took the training from Ed and launched.
I wasn't.
Luke wasn't scared.
That's why you work maybe well together then, right? Yeah.
Well, because I come from a filmmaking background, so I'm used to being on camera and acting, having to perform. So I love being in the spotlight.
I think too, what also has come up for me is like, we need people to share their message in whatever way that they deliver it, right? So if you're a soft-spoken person, if you're high energy, you know, people are all going to connect to different people in different ways. So I might tell someone to get adjusted and they may be excited about it. And someone else a different doctor might share the same ideas and use different metaphors or different languaging and have different communication style that might connect with someone else differently. So I just think we all need to shine in our own light, and we all need to be able to have the confidence and the certainty that what we do is going to make a difference. And docs, if you don't have that, you need to find the people to help you get there.
So let's talk marketing. What are some of your favorite marketing strategies, whether it be for podcast listens or for patients to come to your practice?
I think podcast is, you know, I email it out to people and I share it in social media. You know, I like Facebook and Instagram. And although my kids call Facebook Mom Book now, so I don't know. I think that in my practice, the podcast has just been a very organic. I've done very little paid advertising. A lot of the growth has come from guests sharing it with their tribe, and then people finding it, you know, on iTunes or wherever they find it, and just really connecting with it and wanting to share with other people. And when I think about that, Luke, it's basically how my practice grows as well. I'm a big fan of the tried and true marketing tactic of doing good work, building great relationships with people, and making them want to tell other people about you. So I do lots of events in my community. I love to get involved. I like to go and speak at different things. And I like I said, new podcasts for the practice. I like to do videos. I like to do things that share, we call them, you know, just public service announcements. Like, not chiropractic is great, you should go get adjusted. It's like, hey, this is how you should teach your child to wear a backpack so it doesn't hurt their spine. And if your child needs a chiropractic checkup, go to this website or go call me and I'll give you a referral in your area. You know, it's more service announcements is kind of my focus always. And how do we just teach people to live healthier lives? And I think, again, that goes more towards the idea of collaboration, and it's a good energy rather than just being self-serving. But the tried and true thing for me has definitely just been word of mouth and learning a lot myself, so that I feel like I'm showing up in my practice. And it's actually, one of your guests and I were talking with this, Dr. Skip Weiss. When you start learning something, then all of a sudden you start attracting it more. So I recently was reviewing some of the primitive reflex stuff, and sure enough, I've got all these new kids in the office that I'm needing to work through these reflexes with. So keep learning and build great relationships and get results for people.
So what's your favorite app or technology to stay engaged with your patients?
I think that, again, social media, I have a lot of fun with that. In just being part of people's lives, you get to see when your patients follow you on Facebook or on Instagram and you see their stories or the things they're posting. Like, to me, it's really heartwarming, but there's definitely been times when I've seen things in those two forums where I've been able to connect with them. You know, maybe a person loses a loved one and next thing they're in for an adjustment, and they didn't tell me that, but I already was prepared because I saw that they were dealing with something, you know, difficult. Or recently, a little boy in the practice, a 3-year-old, he broke his leg. And the mom knew that he needed to come in for a checkup with me. And I saw a video of him walking with the dad on Facebook. And I messaged the mom and said, you need to bring him in because I'm watching him walk and he needs an adjustment. So I think that social media has been, for me, that is Facebook and Instagram. It's been a really fun way to connect with people in my practice and also share information. I also send out emails, and I love good old emails for delivery of information, with the practice, where there's just weekly videos or practice tips, health tips for people. I think those are the two apps that I would use the most.
So are you finding an effective strategy with Instagram, or are you just kind of like shotgun approach, put something out there and see if it works?
I think more of that, more of the, because it's one more thing. I try to post something every day on somewhere, and I teach my clients, think about either something to do with your brand, something to do with your business, or something to do with your being, like something about your personal life. I mean, people love to know what the docs are doing. So for me, I might post a photo of my sons and I at the Raptors game, or having dinner together, or me enjoying a bike ride, or something that connects them to me and what I might be doing when I'm not in practice. Or I'll share something, a testimonial, or something regarding my business, or something that relates to my brand of health and wellness. So I think it's to be honest, I'm not consistent all the time, and I don't have a specific strategy. But I think that when you're consistent still in posting, you're going to still, you develop some momentum over time for sure.
Organic definitely helps you win, but what we're learning right now with Coach Larry is that if you build a system along the way with your organic reach, that you can have more of a stability within how you produce. And that's where we're going right now. Is we've been like really effective with organic push and organic development and organic tribe building and just the whole attitude around, content marketing. And I think that what I've been doing more now is learning that if we build structure around this and we can tell somebody what to post on a Monday, what to post on a Tuesday, what to post on a Wednesday, and how to like actually interact with people and being more conversational on social media platforms, how you can build the nurturing aspects of developing content organically, but having the structure with it, it makes the whole process more dynamic and you actually get to grow faster. And I've done exactly what you've done, is built out a system, haven't been the most consistent with it, but put out content consistently.
Yeah. It's also a nice ability to have when you are a family person. I mean, I'm not telling docs that they should be on their phone all the time. And I have really strict rules in my own personal life about, notifications on my phone, and I don't want to be disrupted and distracted all the time by my phone. However, I've also created, Instagram while I've been at the park with my kids, when they were younger, or it's allowed me the freedom to also be the kind of parent that I want to be while also marketing my practice in a different way because of the ease of the technology.
That's super cool.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. What other podcasts do you listen to? Are you in the middle of any good books? And what are your hobbies?
Oh gosh, I'm always in the middle of usually about 10 books. What am I reading right now? I'm reading Brendan Burchard's book, High Performance Habits. I'm reading, what's her name? Don't Stop a Girl, Don't Apologize. Rachel Hollis. I'm reading one of her books, which is really easy to pick up. I'm reading a novel. I like novels that are usually set in Europe and are like light. If I'm going to read a novel, I usually want it to be something really super light and fluffy and not deep, because I tend to read a lot of other health books. And I tend to jump around a lot depending on where my interest is at any given time. I usually read something to do with parenting. I'm reading a book called The Teenage Brain right now because I have 2 teenage boys, and it's a lot of neuroscience, so sometimes it gets a little heavy. I love to be outdoors. I love to be on my bike. I love to be down at the water. I like to drink really good coffee. I like to drink really good wine. I like to hike. I know you guys love to hike. I love where I live. I love to travel. And when I'm not in practice or coaching, I'd be usually with my kids or with my friends. Connections are really important to me, relationships. And what am I listening to? I'm listening to podcasts. To be honest, guys, I think lately I've been wanting more quiet when I'm in the car. I don't drive a lot on my day-to-day life because I live and work in the same space, and I can walk a lot of places in my town. And if I'm in the car, it's not for longer than 10 minutes. But when I do drive for 30, 40 minutes, sometimes I just want the quiet. And I think sometimes we can get overloaded with input. And sometimes you need the quiet to really let your thoughts creatively, explore different ideas that you might want to pursue, or just to chill. But when I do listen to podcasts, I listen to you guys. I listen to TCP. I listen to Oprah. I love her Super Soul conversations because I find them really, or not the Super Soul, the Masterclass. She's had lots of interesting people that have had, again, like they failed forward. They've had lots of ups and downs in their life. And I think we can learn from people's stories all the time. I listen to Dave Asprey's Bulletproof, Tim Ferriss, kind of the run of the mill. Well, maybe not run of the mill. For me, they're the ones in my playlist. I listen to Skip's podcast of Prime Pediatrics now for clinical gems, pediatric wise. And I also listen to Dr. Sarah Hart. She's an Inner Circle member as well. And she's got the Journey to Authenticity. And I find some really great ideas in that show as well. So that's a little bit more about me.
Where would people go if they want to learn more about you and what
I would probably say the Rockstar Doctor Life website has got everything. It's got all 118 shows there. It's got some blog posts. It has any videos that I've done, any guest interviews that I've done. It has information about how to work with me if they want to pursue working with me or any upcoming programs. And obviously if they want to connect with me, send me an email on their Facebook, Instagram. I'm happy to connect with as many docs as possible through those platforms as well.
So at this juncture, Dr. Melissa, is there anything that we didn't ask you that you think that you like share with our audience today?
No, I appreciate the work you guys are doing in trying to help docs hustle and build the lives that they want. I think, it's similar to what I do in really trying to get people connected with, at least doctors connected with what matters to them and how they can build their own Rockstar Doctor life, right? So a life that makes them feel happy and healthy and gives them joy in their relationships, as well as rocking their business and also, but rocking a business model that works for them, whatever that's going to look like. I think my only last piece of advice would be don't be anyone but yourself. Get really clear on what your values are and how you want to show up in the world, and find ways to build a tribe around you that loves and supports you and will help you be more of who you are, and not try to be someone else. Because I've been there and done that. I think many people at this stage in their life have, and it's not a fun way to live. So be you.
That's awesome.
Very cool. Well, this pretty much brings us to the end of this episode of Chiro Hustle. Dr. Melissa, I want to thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's nice to see you guys.
It's always good to see you, and thank you for sharing with us today.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.